Creation is the universe. Creation is everything that we can see and probably a whole lot that we can't, probably more that we can't see. But it's what's about us, and it's the relationship, this amazing web of life that we have here. And nature, which is part of creation, is more like the earth itself in its part, in its position in this whole web of life in the creation. We have relationships with all the elements and forces of life, including the sun, we call our elder brother; the moon, we call our grandmother; the winds, we call our grandfathers; the four directions, our grandfathers; and then all of the elements of life itself. So, in this idea of creation, nature is the earth itself, and we call the earth Mother, Itinoha, our mother, as we call all women Itinoha, mothers. And from mothers spring life, and we understand that. And we know that life springs from the earth, that generations that are looking up layer upon layer, waiting their time to come up and serve and be, is our responsibility. So the earth is female. If you have a mother, then you have children. So we're children. We're children of the earth. And we're tied to the earth. We come from the earth and we go back to the earth, and the earth has great systems of regeneration, great cycles of regenerative life. And it's these cycles that we're all part of. And just as the earth has seasons of life, all animals and all things that grow and fly, and including humans, have seasons of life as well. And so we grow in the same style. What's different about all of that is the time that's allocated to the varieties of life that are on the earth. And we have a fairly long system of life, but not the longest. Turtles live beyond us. Parrots live beyond us. There are certain mammals that have an older life cycle than we do, but we have a long life cycle as it is on Earth. And then also, when you move down to the fine insects, then their life cycle is counted in days. So what you have is this variety and complexity of life, and the times that are allocated, and what happens during those times for each of these elements. That's what's important to understand. What I've noticed and know about indigenous people around the earth is that many, many indigenous nations have been able to hang on to the knowledges that they have, the traditional knowledge, fortunately, I think, for everybody. And in this traditional knowledge is the directions or the instructions for a good life. So we have instructions about how do we conduct ourselves on this earth, and probably the first one is respect. And I think if there was a law, common law around the world, indigenous peoples, and I think everybody, respect is a law. And if people followed this law, simple law of respect, you'd have a lot more peace, and you'd have a lot more quiet and a better life. So I'd say respect conduct yourself accordingly and recognize what your obligations are and what your duties are. And the duties are to protect these life forms. When the peacemaker came to our territory about 1,000 years ago and brought this whole concept of peace as the original 5 nations, the Mohawks, the Oneidas, the Onondagas, the Cayugas, Senecas, were in a constant warfare. And we had really forgotten our instructions that we had prior to that, and we're not living by them. And the peacemaker came among us and brought this whole idea, concept of peace and democracy. And he gave it to us whole. And it took him a long time to do that. There's a whole story about how he came and how he worked with Hyan Wentha, whom you call Hiawatha, and how they worked and brought together this great confederacy called the Haudenosaunee, based on peace, based on equity, justice for people, and based on the power of the good minds, the power of unity, the issues of health, all given to us 1,000 years ago. And he laid out the process by which we do this. And one of the first things he said was he was going to give great responsibility to the women. Since the earth is female, then the women should be working with the earth. Men would be in charge of fire. Women would be in charge of water. And so the men are work to see to the welfare. We do counseling, we do meetings, we do all of that. And if needs be, we fight. But basically we're dedicated to peace. And that was what's so important about that time, 1,000 years ago. When if you looked in Europe at that time, as great wars were going on, and the whole history of Europe, as I saw it, is one war after the other, century after century, how people lived in constant fear, and thousands of people died. Well, in this part of the universe, which was kind of just isolated, the Western Hemisphere wasn't even known about, we were operating under a different system. And it was basically one of respect and councils of leaders to try to keep the peace, because human nature is human nature. And you have to have a process by which to meet problems. And you have to have rules and so forth. So the rules was always based around respect. And fundamental to all of that was the understanding of how the earth itself was paramount to all of our life. And so in this idea of respect was also the understanding of what we should do and how we should conduct ourselves according to the elements of the earth and all of the natural worlds. So we always said that we have been told and understand that we're relatives. And where our white brother will talk about water and talk trees and animals and fish as resources, we talk about them as relatives. And that's a whole different perspective. If you think that they're relatives and you understand it and you understand that, then you're going to treat them differently. And the responsibility the peacemaker said to us was very clear. He planted a great tree of peace, a great white pine, a great symbol to our nations. He said, this is the great tree of peace. He said, its roots will be 4 white roots of truth that reach in the 4 directions of the earth. And those that have nowhere to go can follow the root back to its source and come under the protection of the great tree. And he said that this tree of peace is a spiritual law. It represents a spiritual law. And the spiritual law is the law of nature. And he told us explicitly, never challenge this law, because you cannot prevail. You will not prevail.